My name is Kelly, and I often wonder how my life would have been if my mom hadn't gotten sick. She passed away when I was 6, and everything changed after that. Our house used to be filled with her laughter, and happy family pictures covered every wall. Dad took it really hard. For months, he barely spoke. He would just go to work and come back home. I tried to stay quiet and not bother him. I didn't really understand what death meant back then. I kept asking when Mom would come back from heaven. Dad would just hug me tightly and stay silent. Then he met Madison at a work event. She started coming over for dinner, and I noticed Dad smiling more. That's why I didn't say anything when Mom's pictures slowly disappeared from the walls. New ones with Madison started replacing them. One evening, Dad sat me down in the living room. I remember nervously playing with the hem of my dress. "Kelly, Madison and I have something to tell you," he said. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "Madison and I are getting married. She's going to live with us and be your new mom. Everything will be wonderful." But it wasn't wonderful. As soon as they got back from their honeymoon, Madison started changing everything. She moved the furniture, painted the walls, and made new house rules. "Kelly, your room is messy again," she would say every morning. "A young lady should keep her space clean. And please keep your voice down when playing. I have a headache." Even though I was just 6, I had to do chores every day. When I complained to Dad, he just said, "Listen to Madison, honey. She knows what's best for you." One day, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to hear what they were saying. "She's just not adjusting well, Paul," Madison said. "Maybe it would be better if she lived with your mother. She always talks about how much she misses having family around." Then, I heard Dad's voice. It was quiet. "No. I made a promise to Christina. Before she passed, I swore I would take care of Kelly. And there's the money she left for Kelly's college. I gave my word that it would be used for her education." I didn't know it then, but things were about to get even harder. A year later, Madison got pregnant, and everything changed again. Dad was overjoyed, and Madison wouldn't stop talking about how she was finally going to have her own child. Those words hurt more than any rule or chore she had ever given me. Because that's all I was to her, someone else's child, not hers. Never hers. When Laura was born, I was 10 years old. I remember standing in the hospital hallway with Dad, looking through the nursery window at my baby sister. She was so tiny, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, and Dad couldn't stop smiling. "You're a big sister now, Kelly," he said proudly. "You'll help take care of Laura, won't you?" I nodded quickly, not knowing what that really meant. But I learned soon enough. The moment Laura came home, Madison put me to work. "Kelly, bring me fresh diapers." "Kelly, wash these bottles." "Kelly, hold Laura while I make a phone call." The orders never stopped. By the time I was 9, I knew how to change diapers, make baby formula, and cook simple meals for Laura. While other kids my age were outside playing after school, I was mashing bananas and stirring rice cereal. One Thursday, I begged, "But I want to go to Christina's birthday parties." "Laura needs you here," Madison said firmly. "She's teething and fussy. Besides, someone has to clean up the mess she made in the playroom." As Laura grew, so did my responsibilities. I had to watch Laura all the time, making sure she didn't fall while learning to walk or put anything dangerous in her mouth. Meanwhile, she got all the attention and gifts. Every time she threw a tantrum, she was given a new toy or a special treat. By the time she turned 4, Laura figured out that she could get me in trouble whenever she wanted, and she used that power every chance she got. One time, she spilled her juice all over her new dress on purpose, and then ran crying to Madison. "Kelly pushed me," she wailed. I spent that whole weekend grounded in my room. Another time, she broke her expensive musical toy and blamed me. "Kelly was playing with it when it broke," she lied. It didn't matter that I was doing my homework at the time. Madison made me give up my allowance for a month to pay for a new one. The worst was when she cut up her own party dress with scissors and hid them in my backpack. Madison found them during one of her surprise room checks. "How could you be so jealous?" Madison yelled at me. "Do you even know how much that dress cost?" I tried to explain, but Dad didn't want to hear it. "Go to your room," he interrupted. We'll talk about your punishment later. As I walked past, Laura stood in the doorway smirking. She had learned early on that she could do anything and never get in trouble, while I got blamed for everything. The only place I could escape was Grandma Mary's house. Every weekend I spent with her felt like stepping into a different world, a world where I could just be a kid. Her cozy home always smelled like freshly baked cookies, and she gave me the kind of love I never got at home. "Look at you, skin and bones," she would say, piling my plate with pancakes. "That woman has you running around like Cinderella's." Unlike at home, at Grandma's house, I could laugh as loud as I wanted. At Grandma's house, I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to watch my every move like I did at home. One time, Laura came with me, but she quickly realized her usual tricks wouldn't work there. "I want ice cream before dinner," she whined, stomping her feet. Grandma gave her a firm look. "In this house, we eat dinner first. And tantrums don't get rewards," she said. Laura never came back after that. "Grandma's house is boring," she told our parents. What she really meant was that Grandma's house had rules, and everyone had to follow them, even her. Then came the day everything changed. Laura threw a huge tantrum because she didn't want to do her homework. Grandma was visiting that day and saw everything. "Paul," Grandma said to Dad, her voice serious, "that child is spoiled. Madison, you need to do better. You're raising a little tyrant." Madison's face turned red with anger. "How dare you judge my parenting? You have no right." Grandma didn't back down. "I have every right when I see my granddaughters being treated so unfairly. Look at what you're doing to Kelly." That night, I heard shouting downstairs. Madison was crying, saying she wouldn't tolerate such disrespect. Dad, like always, took her side. The next day, Madison made an announcement. "We won't be visiting Grandma Mary anymore." "That's not fair," I protested. "Life isn't fair," Madison snapped. "And if I catch you trying to contact her, you'll be grounded until college." That word, college, became my only hope. For the next few years, I focused on my studies. I counted down the days until graduation, knowing that Mom had left money for my education. I had overheard Dad talk about it enough times. That money was my way out. Then, graduation day came. I was still wearing my cap and gown when Dad and Madison sat me down for a serious talk about college. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. "We've decided to save that money for Laura's education instead," he said. My whole world stopped. "What?" "Your sister has such a bright future," Madison said smoothly. "And you're better suited for practical work." Something inside me snapped. For the first time in my life, I screamed. "That's my money. Mom left it for me." "You promised her, Dad." "You're just a liar." Dad's face turned red. "You're ungrateful girl," he shouted. "After everything we've done for you? Get out. Tomorrow. You can start your adult life somewhere else." I didn't wait for tomorrow. I ran upstairs, threw some clothes and a few important things into my backpack, grabbed the hidden photo of Mom, and walked out. My friend Jessica had always told me I could stay with her family if things got bad. And now, things were worse than I ever imagined. Being a waitress wasn't what I had dreamed of after high school, but it was the only way I could pay my bills, just barely. I got a job at the Silver Spoon, a busy downtown restaurant, and took every double shift I could. Every night, my feet ached, and I smelled like burgers and fries. But at least I was free. Jessica's parents were amazing, letting me stay with them for the first few months. But I knew I couldn't stay forever. That's when I met Barbara, another waitress at the restaurant. She was looking for a roommate. "The apartment's tiny," she warned me, "and the neighbors are loud. But it's cheap." She wasn't kidding about tiny. Our little apartment barely had space for 2 beds and a couch. But it was ours. And the best part? No one could tell us what to do. We worked the same shifts, split the grocery bill, and somehow made it work. "Any plans for school?" Barbara would ask sometimes as we counted our tips after closing. I just shook my head. Between rent, bills, and food, I could barely save anything. College felt like a dream that had died the night I left home. Then, one random Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. I almost dropped the coffee pot when I saw the number. "Kelly, sweetheart. I've been trying to find you. How's college going? My throat tightened. I'm not in college, Grandma. What do you mean? Your father had Christina's money set aside. I couldn't stop myself. I told her everything. The fight, getting kicked out, working as a waitress. By the time I finished, I was sitting in the A Little Taste of Home restaurant crying. Grandma was silent for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Then she spoke. Her voice shook with anger. Those miserable, selfish, she took a deep breath. Listen to me, Kelly. I'm paying for your college. No arguments. Grandma, no. I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm doing it. Your mother was like a daughter to me, and I won't let them steal your future. Now, tell me, have you looked at any schools? I could try the local university. They had evening classes. Perfect. We'll get you enrolled for next semester, Grandma said. Then she paused. But Kelly, let's keep this between us. I don't want to deal with your father or that woman. I laughed through my tears. Trust me, Grandma, neither do I. And just like that, I became a full-time waitress and a part-time student. My day started at 6 a.m. with studying, then classes, then straight to work until closing. I'd come home exhausted, my feet sore, smelling like restaurant food, only to open my books again. Barbara thought I was crazy. Girl, when do you sleep? Sleep is for the weak, I joked, gulping down my third cup of coffee. But for the first time since I left home, I felt like I was moving forward. Every test I passed, every paper I finished felt like a small victory, not just for me but for Mom too. I might not have been able to use the money she left me, but I was still getting the education she wanted for me. And the best part? Nobody in my family knew. They probably thought I was still stuck waiting tables, going nowhere in life. Let them think that. I was done proving myself to people who never cared. I was studying for my business management final when a message from Laura popped up on Twitter. There she was, smiling next to a brand new red Mercedes, wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my rent. Look what Mom and Dad got me for my birthday. Not that you'd know anything about nice cars, huh? Still serving burgers? Must be fun watching everyone else live their best life while you're stuck being a waitress forever. The next photo was of her college acceptance letter. Got into state. Mom and Dad are paying for everything, tuition, housing, meal plan. They even promised me a spring break trip to Europe. But hey, at least you get free fries with your shift meal, right? I stare at my textbook, then back at her message. I could have told her about my 4.5 GPA, about how I was about to graduate with honors. Instead, I clicked block user and went back to studying. 4 weeks later, I graduated with my business degree. Only Grandma was there to watch me walk across the stage, but that was all I needed. We went out for dinner afterward. At a different restaurant, of course. Back at work, things started to change. One morning, Mr. Timothy, the owner, called me into his office. Kelly, we've noticed how hard you work. How would you feel about becoming shift manager? You know this place inside and out, the staff respects you, and now you've got the education for it. That was just the beginning. 7 months later, I was promoted to floor administrator. My salary doubled, and suddenly everything started falling into place. I could finally afford to move out of the tiny apartment I shared with Barbara. Years passed, and I kept moving up. By the time I turned 31, I was running the entire restaurant. The Silver Spoon was no longer just a regular downtown place. It had become one of the city's top dining spots. My name even appeared in restaurant magazines. But as far as my family knew, I was still just a waitress. My new apartment was in a fancy high-rise downtown, with huge windows and a beautiful view of the city. Every morning, I stood there with my coffee, watching the sunrise, thinking about how far I had come from that scared teenager who ran away with just a backpack. Then, on a quiet Friday morning, I got a Twitter message from Mrs. David, our old neighbor. We had stayed in touch over the years. She was one of the few people from my old life who had been kind to me. When Madison was at her worst, Mrs. David would secretly give me cookies. She even helped me hide Mom's photo album when Madison tried to throw it away. The message read, Kelly, honey, I thought you should know. Laura is graduating next week, and she's planning something nasty. She made reservations at the Silver Spoon. She knows you work there. She's been bragging to everyone about how she's going to have you serve her table. She thinks it'll be hilarious to have her college dropout sister wait on her graduation party. She invited all her snob friends, and even some of her old neighbors. She's been telling everyone that she'll finally prove what a failure you are. I thought you should know. I leaned back in my leather office chair, looking out over the restaurant floor through the one-way glass. The lunch rush was just starting. My well-trained staff moved smoothly between tables like a perfectly choreographed dance. A slow smile spread across my face. I opened our reservation system. There it was. Laura Wilson, party of 16. Thursday, 8 p.m. Graduation celebration. She had even added a special request. Best table in the house. Price is no object. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could cancel it right now. One click, and their reservation would disappear. I could have asked Jennifer to call them with some excuse, maybe a plumbing problem or a double booking. But no. I had a better idea. I picked up my phone and called Grandma. She answered on the second ring. She was probably in her garden. She always kept her phone close while taking care of her prized Marys. You'll never guess who's coming to my restaurant, I said. Who? She asked. Laura. And Dad. And Madison. They're coming to celebrate her graduation. Apparently, she picked this place just so she could embarrass her waitress sister. Mrs. David had warned me just in time. Grandma's voice turned sharp. Cancel their reservation. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life, Kelly. Haven't they hurt you enough? I smiled, glancing at the Businesswoman of the Year award hanging on my wall. Actually, I said, I have a better idea. How would you like to come to dinner that night? I'll give you the best table in the house, right behind the marble column by the waterfall wall. You'll be able to see everything, but they won't see you. There was a pause. Then Grandma started laughing, that deep, mischievous laugh that always meant trouble when I was growing up. Oh, you devious girl. Count me in. Should I wear my pearls for the occasions? Perfect. I'll have Gary make your favorite chocolate soufflé. He's been working on that new raspberry sauce you liked last time. I'll bring my camera, Grandma chuckled. This is going to be better than those reality shows you used to watch. After we hung up, I called my assistant. Jennifer, clear my schedule for next Thursday evening. And make sure the staff knows I'll be handling a special table personally. Of course, Miss Wilson. Anything else? Yes. I ran my finger along the diploma hanging on my wall, business management with honors. Make sure we have our finest champagne chilled. And have Frank prepare his special caviar appetizers. I have a feeling this will be a night to remember. I looked out over my restaurant again. Perfect. Laura always loved her little power plays. She enjoyed humiliating people, making herself feel bigger. But this time, she was walking straight into my territory. And I was ready. Thursday evening. The restaurant was buzzing with its usual weekend energy. I watched from my office as Laura's party arrived. Laura wore a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Madison had her usual overdone makeup, and Dad, he looked older than I remembered. They were surrounded by Laura's friends, all dressed to impress. I could see Grandma sitting at her hidden table, pretending to read the menu while watching everything unfold. As I passed by, she gave me a small wink. Then, Laura's loud voice cut through the restaurant. Excuse me, she called out. I specifically requested my sister Kelly as our server. Where is she? I smoothed down my tailored suit jacket and walked over to their table. The moment Laura saw me, her eyes lit up with malicious delight. Oh my God, everyone! This is my sister I was telling you about, she announced, waving her hand like I was some kind of zoo exhibit. Still a waitress after all these years. Can you believe it? I just graduated from state, and she's still carrying plates. The table burst into laughter, led by Laura. Dad chuckled too, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. Madison just sat there with that smug expression I knew too well. Laura leaned toward her friends, fake whispering loud enough for me to hear. Look at her clothes. I guess that's what you can afford on a waitress's salary. I stood there in my Armani suit, letting them laugh. Oh, the irony. What can I get for you this evening? I asked, my voice calm and professional. Laura made a big show of studying the menu. Well, since you asked, I'll have the lobster thermidor. Oh, wait. She looked up with mock concern. Can you even afford to eat at a place like this? Do you even know what lobster is? Her friends laughed again, but this time, some of them looked uncomfortable. Then she added, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, and after dinner, I want you to personally wash our dishes. I'll even give you a nice tip. Maybe you can finally buy some decent clothes. I saw Grandma gripping the edge of her table, her knuckles turning white. Some guests nearby whispered among themselves, clearly embarrassed by Laura's behavior. Madison finally spoke, her voice cold. Really, Kelly, you should be grateful Laura chose your little restaurant for her celebration. Though, I must say, I'm surprised they hired someone like you at such a nice place. I kept my smile steady. Actually, I said, I won't be able to take your order. And I definitely won't be washing your dishes tonight. Laura's face darkened. What do you mean you won't? I want to speak to your manager right now. I'll have you fired. I smiled. That won't be necessary. I stayed calm. The manager is already here. Laura frowned. Well, where are they? She looked around. You're looking at her? Silence. The whole table froze. Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Dad's face turned completely white. Madison looked like she had just swallowed something sour. That's impossible. Laura finally stammered. You're lying. You're just a waitress. A familiar voice cut through the tension. Actually, she's not just the manager. She owns 40% of this restaurant now. Everyone turned as Grandma Mary stepped forward from her hidden table. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, and the look she gave Dad could have frozen hell over. While you were busy spoiling one daughter and crushing the other, I put Kelly through college. She worked here as a waitress by day and studied business management at night. Every success she earned herself. Laura jumped up, her face red. That's not fair. You're lying. Grandma didn't miss a beat. She's nothing but a successful businesswoman who owns part of one of the city's most prestigious restaurants, Grandma said smoothly. Who bought her own luxury apartment while you're still living off Daddy's money. Is that what you were going to say? Dad finally found his voice. Mom, I don't. Don't you dare, Paul Wilson. Grandma snapped. You let that woman turn you against your own daughter. You gave away Kelly's college money her mother left specifically for her. Well, guess what? I'm making things right. I've already changed my will. Everything I own goes to Kelly. Every penny. Madison shot up from her chair. You can't do that. Laura is your granddaughter too. Grandma's voice was ice cold. Laura has had everything handed to her on a silver platter her whole life. She doesn't need my money. Though, from what I've seen tonight, she could use some basic human decency. Laura snapped. She grabbed her wine glass and hurled it across the table. It shattered, sending food flying. This isn't fair, she screamed. You're all just jealous of me. I didn't flinch. Security. 3 men in black suits appeared instantly. Please escort these people out. Madison gasped. You can't throw us out, she shrieked. Do you know who we are? I smiled. Yes, I do. You're trespassers causing a disturbance in my restaurant. Leave now, or I'll call the police and press charges for the damage to my property. Laura tried to grab another plate, but one of the security guards caught her arm. Dad just stood there, looking lost as they were all led to the door. Before stepping out, he turned back, his voice weak. Kelly, please can we talk? I didn't answer. I simply turned my back and walked away. The aftermath. Over the next few months, Dad tried everything. Calls. Emails. Even showing up at the restaurant once. I had security turn him away. That was 6 years ago. Today, the Silver Spoon is the top-rated restaurant in the city, and I've opened 3 more locations. Grandma kept her word about the will, though thankfully, she's still going strong at 78. She spends her days tending her garden and coming to the restaurant every Sunday for her favorite chocolate souffle. Last week, I got another message from Laura. Something about how she's changed and wants to make amends. I did what I always do with messages from that part of my life. I hit delete and went back to work. Some chapters are better left closed.